When I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian and a singer. And then when I was 10, I wanted to be a race car driver. You set a goal that you want so badly that the rest is just kind of the way. You do something that is hard or challenging or uncomfortable to get a benefit. I do everything fast. I walk fast, I think fast, I move fast, like I drive fast. When you just say the thing that is you and natural and true, actually you can be scared of how it's gonna land, but if it's true, it's gonna work.
You know, I asked Lance Armstrong yesterday, I want to ask you that same question. What's the best thing and the worst thing about being Danica Patrick?
The best thing is, I don't know, well, the first thing I think is I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
But that's kind of multifaceted, meaning like money-wise, I can do whatever I want or not do anything, reach a certain person, meet people, have experiences. So it feels like when I lay my head down at night and I first say all the things that I'm grateful for, one of those things is always just the opportunities and experiences I get to have in my life are just so vast and wide and deep and amazing, and things you can't buy, and yeah, I'm like continuously inspired by all those things. And then the worst thing, I guess that there be, I mean, I'm a pretty honest person. I'm like pretty transparent. I'm comfortable with who I am, but you know, you always are on every time you go somewhere, no matter what you're doing. If you're going to the grocery store or a concert or on vacation in another country, like it never leaves my mind that someone might be watching me,
right,
and judging me, or you know. So I guess that's just being always watched and always on, never feeling like you can completely let your guard down. Like even just something simple, like being an adult, and what if I just get too drunk in a restaurant? Like having too good of a time one night. Like are people going to look at me and have a totally different opinion? You know?
What's the definition of too drunk?
Probably when I can't remember.
Right.
Maybe even browning out, my kind of blackout, brown out. That probably still qualifies as too drunk. That's
funny. So yeah, have you ever had, I mean, I'm sure you've had stalkers. I'm sure you've had people that,
yeah.
How do you disengage with when you have someone that's a little too close or a little too clingy, a little too sketchy? How do you, I don't know if there's any exact process.
I mean, I
for
remember a long time ago I was racing IndyCar, and there was a mail just came to the house, because it does, right? And there was a yellow envelope with a map from my house to this person's house in California, and a key to his house, and very, very obscure photos of like ballerina slippers and someone on a track at a starting line, and like where you can tell they're not mentally stable. But of course they had the address to where I lived exactly, which was kind of not okay. So that was kind of where it started, and you know, at that point in time you have like IndyCar security looking into that, and you know, I've always had a lot of sort of background help on things, but that's another layer of the less fun part about being me or being popular, is the level of security you need to make sure that you have. So having a P.O. box for everything was just kind of a pain in the ass. Or having your, you know, companies in a trust, and, you know, LLCs and Delaware Corps, and, you know, all the things that it takes to just put layers of security between you and someone that might not be the best person to know you. Yeah, so there's a lot of logistics to manage with all that. So what do you feel is your, if you had to talk about you as if you weren't you, and describe the talents that this individual has, the things that they have done that they leveraged, because you leveraged a lot of skills, what do you think that is? How would you describe that? Oh. God, don't you all just envy me having to talk? Oh, this is so uncomfortable. My best skills?
Yeah.
I'm extremely determined. I think probably one of my best attributes is, I think I mentioned it the other day, yesterday, but it's goal setting and future setting and having somewhere I want to go. which gets me pretty attached to outcomes, but it also makes me like a dog on a bone, right? And makes me sort of look at the, as Goggins might say, suffering or the challenges as they're just doable. They're the way, right? And so, so I think for my ability to focus and be so laser focused on it and be able to narrow up to do it is good. I also am extremely quick at making decisions. I think I learned this actually after racing. I do everything fast. I walk fast, I think fast, I move fast, like I drive fast.
Do you meditate fast?
Yes, actually I do. I don't even like meditating for that reason.
Yeah.
My meditation usually, which I don't do very often, but I find it far more valuable to speak to ascended masters or speak to my higher self or someone else's. I find it a lot easier to talk to the ones that are dead versus the ones that are alive. But yeah, so sometimes I'll just go and like ask questions to someone that I feel like has an ascended master of a certain energy that can give me information. So yeah, my meditation is fast.
That's interesting. Definitely, I think you have the driven brain, which is funny being a race car driver. So do you ask for guidance, or is it more just taking your own thinking and reflecting it back as if this is a sounding board that you assign to a past person that you either respected or has died?
Sometimes it's a sounding board, and sometimes it's an open format to tell me something I need to know. Almost like opens up a little like an EMDR kind of thing, where you can empty your mind just enough and ask a question and like let it drop in and get hits and downloads on stuff.
Yeah.
And anytime that you're getting into that space, the answer is either there immediately or not. You shouldn't have to reach for it. And that's when I know it's, in my mind, real versus not.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool.
So yeah, I think that's another attribute. I do everything fast, make decisions fast, and I'm very determined. And there's plenty of things I am not good at, so let's just make sure that's clear.
Well, I was going to ask you, what's your kryptonite? What are the things that really take away your power, mess you up, ruin your mood, send you down places you don't want to go? Two
things. No natural light. Actually, I get like zapped energy-wise when I'm in places where I don't get natural light. So that's really hard on me. And then I would say details. I'm so bad at details. I am your vision. I am like the vision person. I'm concept. I come up with company ideas unnecessarily regularly, and and I think they're brilliant.
I don't think anyone here has ever had that
Exactly, right. Preaching to the choir, as they say. But execution is not my jam. I mean, math too, P&Ls and things like that, or like sometimes I get from Somnium, one of my wine company out of Napa. I'll get a report that is like way too many numbers, way too many line items, way too small a print, and I just go no. Or too many words. Sometimes I get an email that's many, many paragraphs long, and I will just reply with too many words. I need short, concise bullet points. I think really simply, really clearly, really logically, really rationally, and I need to know where we're trying to go and what do you need to know. Like many times I just think to myself, what's the point? Tell me what the point is. Like, can we just cut to the chase?
Yeah.
So I think that it can be very abrasive for people, but it's how I would like to be dealt with too. I also am very honest, and I think that's also a little off-putting for people, but I can also accept it and would love to have it. It's just not, most people don't know they can deliver it or even have that the awareness of it.
Yeah, has there been a time in your life where you found yourself suffering, to use the term suffering fools?
What does that mean?
People that really don't, for where you're at in the world, for who you are, putting up with their bullshit or giving time and attention to someone that it's just not at the level of where you're at. Like I feel, from my own version, I'm sure I've suffered fools, and I've probably been a fool in my life too many times, different stages of youth and things like that, but just giving the time of day to people that, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, or they're really toxic or negative. We were talking earlier about criticism. You know, you know, there are people that give me constantly quote unquote constructive criticism, want to tell me how to run my business, what I could do better. It's endless, the amount of people that always want to come up and give me feedback. Most of it is from people that haven't done what I've done, but they want to tell me how to do what I'm doing better. And so oftentimes they have good advice. It doesn't mean they have to have done it, but I'll be nice, I'll be I mean, I wrote a book called What's in It for Them. You know, it's like, don't be an asshole. And there are times where wanting to be helpful, wanting to be generous, I find myself trying to be really patient with people that are like, you're not bringing anything to the dance party here except grief. And then the criticism, most criticism that's toxic criticism, not you know, constructive, if you want to call it that. It's self-hatred turned outward, where people attack you, but it's really the self-hatred they just turn on other people.
Of course, it's a projection.
So, right.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by suffering fools.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes. I'm pretty good at leaving things behind that aren't for me, unless it's a relationship. I'm pretty bad at that. We all have our areas.
Right.
They've all been wonderful at times, just maybe not just the right fit. I've learned that it's not good and bad, it's just right or wrong for each other. I'm not trying to take away from any of the people. I'm sure I've been that person that was the bad or wrong. But I think when it comes to my friendships and in business, I'm pretty decisive, and like, probably to a shocking level, especially with friends, actually. When they don't serve me anymore, when they're draining, when they're always a problem, or a lot of work, or just drama, I'm like, I'm in it for the friendship, and if you think it's anything different, we don't even have the conversation. I don't need to patch it up with you. We don't need to, you know, family, yes, but friends, moving on. And that just things that fade away. Yeah. So I think that, I think that in business, I get that same. I have those scenarios at times. It's a little bit more entangled, so it's harder and takes longer. And I also have a little bit of a harder time because I'm not a details person, so I don't have that day-to-day accountability with them. That it takes me a little longer to figure it out. But kind of like I was just talking to my VP, who's been with me for over 15 years. I was like, you know how I get when I'm done with an employee, right? And she's like, God, yes, I hope that never happens to me. But I'm good. And then I'm like, no, this needs to happen. And so it takes me a little longer with people in business, but I'm pretty clear when it's clear.
Have you had your heart broken before?
Oh my God. It's like, yeah, like a ton.
Have you think there's more you having your heart broken or you breaking other people's hearts?
Ah, man, I'm sure I've done both. Yeah, I've done some leaving, but I've been left too. So, yeah, sometimes I've thought that my heartbreak was karma for some of the other ones that maybe were more me, you know?
Yeah, well.
Or the balance, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I always think about, you know, for every person that's going to a workshop to get over somebody, that relationship they're hurt by, in many cases that person that they're going to the workshop to get over is also going to a workshop to get over them.
Yeah.
And
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And sometimes, you know, I've always thought a lot about we find people whose dents match our dents. And through the relationships that I've had, especially love relationships, which I've always been very intimate relationships have been very difficult because of my addiction past, which addiction is always a connection. It's a connection disorder to a degree, and I love the definition of intimacy that was given to me by an 80-year-old gay man that spends his life sponsoring people with sexual addictions, and he said, intimacy is a mutual exploration of a shared safe place. Abuse is anything that takes away the safe place. And addictions are what we do to make ourselves feel good when we don't have a safe place. And when you don't feel safe in the world, you're going to look for a way to feel safe and to maybe scratch that itch. And there are some real high-level performers that never feel safe in the world, and they are driven by this fear. And you know, and again, I don't know, like you put yourself into some pretty intense situations. I mean, even what you did as a career. If you weren't a race car driver, what do you think you would have been?
The only other thing I wanted to be, other than when I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian and a singer. First, I wanted to be a secretary because my sister and I would play secretary while my parents worked till like 2 a.m. because they worked super hard. And we'd have sleeping bags, and that's where we'd hang out. But we'd play secretary, and then veterinarian, and then a singer. And trust me, you don't want me to do any of those. Yeah. So those are the first things I wanted to be. And then when I was 10, I wanted to be a race car driver.
Did you ever feel not safe in that role?
As a race car driver?
Or
all the time,
were you
driving around with those idiots. No.
Yeah.
Safe, obviously it's purely unsafe environment.
Right.
So it's totally physically unsafe. Do you mean otherwise?
I actually wasn't thinking it that way, but since what I'm picking up on is, what was it like being around these men constantly all the time, and then the way you sponsorships and things like that, you were quite sexualized for, to not say that would be silly. Of course you were.
Yeah, I never did anything that I wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty large comfort zone, so.
Yeah. No, and you're pretty hardcore.
It's actually my advice for the road too. Anybody driving on the regular road, that's always my simple advice: is just stay in your comfort zone. It's when you're out of it that you screw up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the guy I learned marketing from, he would talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he said what most, he's like self-actualization and survival. He's like, what most people's what it is for most people is to not get out of their comfort zones. He's like, humans hate to get out of their comfort zones, whatever that is. So have you always been pushing yourself to get out of comfort zones?
I thought about this for the entire hour this morning that we were all talking about things, and you could maybe see me cranking away in my brain as I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think about watching that Goggins interview with Huberman, and I think that what gives you the ability to get into that space of challenge, which I like the word much better than suffering, that does not feel like a good one, as far as putting words to the experience we're having, it doesn't resonate with me to say what are you going to do today, you piece of shit? Right. Goggins might say, that does not feel good to say. That's not how I think of myself.
I'm sure that's what Eckhart Tolle does all the time when he's in his pain body. He's like, come on, you motherfucker, you need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that, but these challenges are what they are, and I think that you do them, you sign up for them. It doesn't mean they're always easy or always the preferred thing to do. You might rather be going out to dinner with your friends or doing something else or taking a vacation, but you set a goal that you want so badly that the rest is just kind of the way, right? It's just the things that you need to do to achieve the goal that you want, and yes, sometimes they're not as fun and they're challenging, but I think goal setting probably feels, that's what I was thinking earlier, was I'm like, goal setting, that's it, that's the trick. I can't think of a time where, because you wouldn't sign up for suffering just to suffer. You're not just, some people, well, even cutting, let's say, that's to feel something, right? If people have that problem, it's to feel something. They choose to do that. This isn't just to feel like they want to feel something. It's a way out, right? But you don't just do it because you're like, I just can't wait to hurt right now. I'm going to stab myself or whatever pain thing, or burn your finger, or jump off of the second roof of your house to fall on the ground. You don't just do that. You do something that is hard or challenging or uncomfortable to get a benefit, or getting in a cold plunge, it's 40 degrees. You do that because you go, I know what I want to get from it. So it's in the goal setting that you can back into the things that will end up being those things that change your brain, whatever that magical spot is, and grow it, because you have to do things that are en route to your goal. So that's something that's been natural to me, and I'm guessing this whole room is goal setting from the point you were 10, which has made you have that great big part in your brain, and why you accomplish so much.
Yeah. No, I like that. What is something that nobody knows about you, but you wish they did?
I did a cool, it's like parts work with a friend of mine, Teal Swan, a few years back. And I don't know, has anybody ever heard of her, Teal Swan? She's spiritual, And so I had become friends with her, and so she was in Arizona, and so she was at my house, and we did a little deep dive, and it turned out to be like 5 hours, and shut the door to my living room and sat there, and it was like, all right, let's go into these aspects of you. And she's like, all right, you have this very like strong, like armored sort of like guard side to you, and that's how I present. And I don't love that, but there's a purpose. So it's like going into why. So part of it was, okay, find a place in the room that represents this aspect of you, this part of you. So I truly like went to the end of the couch, like towards the door, and I sat on the arm of the couch, and I was like on guard, right? It was very easy for me to slip into this aspect, and well, because it's a big part of me. And so then I went into all that, but then she asked me to go into the other aspect of me, which went to the other end of the couch, like laid down on the couch and was very soft and very tender. And I cried, and like I have this very, very sweet, soft, delicate side to me. And so I think that's hard for people to always see, because I probably do present fairly strong, and I don't try. Like, I've asked so many people to explain it to me. I don't think that we can change our essence, and I just think it's part of my essence. But I've done all the things that I can do to try and like soften aspects that I can control myself. But when I walk into a room, I can't change how that shows up if I am not doing anything but walking into a room. So I think that probably something that people don't always know is there is like a super, super soft, lovey, like delicate side to me. And I think that's probably why the relationship stuff has been the hardest, because that's where it shows up the most.
Right.
But I think within that aspect, we're operating, as the wonderful Bruce Lipton said, you know, and many others, but, you know, those first sort of 6-7 years of your life, including in the womb, as Lance pointed out, you're being programmed subconsciously. 95% of the rest of your life is operating from a system that it's been uploaded before you can remember anything, barely. And that's a system that takes pattern recognition to learn. And that can take a long time. And so I think that for me, that's where it shows up, is in relationship, is that pattern recognition of those subconscious programmings that happened as a kid, and those narratives that I told to myself that make me abandon myself in some ways in that aspect.
When you have or do abandon yourself, or when people do it, how do you find your way back?
Alone. To spend alone time with myself, to get all the rest of the noise of people out of the way, and mostly people. It doesn't mean I can't sort of listen to something, or, I mean, you know, my dear love for YouTube and learning, like I either listen to a little bit of music, but a lot of times I'll just listen to something educational, so that I can learn. And so, but time alone is of the utmost importance. It's when you really, really, really learn about yourself. Actually, probably one of the simple ones that I did was quite a few years back, maybe 2018 or 19. 19, I went to Tulum by myself for 5 days, like alone. And my phone didn't work anywhere but in my hotel room. So like I'd go to dinner and sit alone, and I would walk on the beach alone. I did everything alone, and I realized like something simple. I walk really fast, yes, but when I was by myself, I walked really slow, and I'm like, that's weird. Right. So I started to like recognize aspects that I always keep tucked behind that guard in me, that one that always wants to lead and win and be in charge. And you know, if I'm sitting in a room, I like hope you call on me. I don't know why, but that's just my nature, is to be on. And deliver.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
So, well, you've positioned yourself lately as quite the freedom fighter. I mean, you're talking about stuff you never talked about before. You're Tucker Carlson, you did an interview with. I'm looking forward to that one coming out.
Me too.
And Turning Point.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing
went on Charlie Kirk's show.
Yeah.
He's based here in Phoenix.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so you're getting attacked. You're getting a lot of criticism. A lot of people have this persona. Why at this stage are you deciding to just say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to talk about this stuff? And
yeah, I mean, I'll be clear, I've never voted. Like when I was in grade school, to go to high school, you have to pass the Constitution test, and you needed a 70 or above to pass 69 is failing, and I got a 70. And then when I got my GED, because I left high school when I was a junior to move to England to go racing, part of it was taking the Constitution test to graduate from high school, and I failed. And I had to actually study. I never studied in my whole life. So I got the little booklet for that, and I probably barely passed. I think I needed 30 out of 60 right. I give you that as a background to say that it's never been something I've been super interested in. I don't understand it is part of it, so I get scared of things I don't understand. But more than anything, I just haven't always felt like I have a place for it. And I think being an athlete, I always kind of followed those cardinal rules of staying away from religion and politics. In fact, a lot of times when I do speaking engagements or different things, it's like topics off limits. Politics and religion. Like, it's just kind of a rule. But I ended up feeling called is what happened, and that's it was here in Phoenix, and it was an event called AmFest, and my sister and I went with me, and I just said that we went, and I love America, and it was the right place to be because it's called AmFest, America Fest. Right. And everybody replied as if I was some radical MAGA, like crazy right Republican, like I was basically like a Trump carrying flag on the back of my car kind of person, and whatever that represents, and I was very taken back by that. I couldn't believe that people were so surprised and taken and not supportive of being proud to be an American, which is kind of just all I said. Right. And I had before that interviewed RFK, posted that as well, and then I also met Tucker at AmFest, and I had been booked to go on Tucker's show a couple of times, and for various reasons. Like one of them was before when he was still with Fox, and then he got fired, and so I thought, well, that's done. And then they called, they're like, we still want you to come on, and then we scheduled it for later, and then it was supposed to be out east, and then that got canceled. But after I met him, we kind of scheduled it quickly and went out there and did that and posted about that. And then Charlie Kirk called, and he's like, I want to have you on the show. I saw you came to AmFest, and anyone that I want to meet in that political realm seems to be popping up. I posted a Vivek video, and they responded, and I don't think it's actually Vivek himself, but it's the person that handles his account, and so they're interested in talking to me. And Tulsi, who is someone who spoke at AmFest, I literally just was messaging with her today, and so it's been so easy to get in touch. And so, it kind of goes back to this theme that we were talking about earlier about this suffering stuff and how that's like to bring more of it in. I have found far more benefit in flow and speed of things happening and doing things that I love and feel called to. Things go so fast, and to me that's such a sign that I'm on the right track and doing the right thing. So I think that's kind of a long-winded answer of I just got drawn in and felt called, and it was like it just seemed like the doors kept opening constantly for me to step into this space. And someone was explaining to me like what it meant to be in Congress and in government, as they were maybe sort of trying to plant a seed that it was something I should think about. They're like, this is the space that people went into where they were just representing their community. Like they weren't career politicians. This isn't their job. They were just representing their community and the interests of where they lived, and that's it. It's almost better, to be honest, that you aren't in the fold. You're needed. You're an authentic voice of the people. Like you should think about this. And I'm like, oh God, do you know I failed the Constitution test, basically? But I think that that's a really cool frame of the way that we should be looking at the people that lead us. Yeah. Is, where have they come from? What are they doing? I think that's why people love listening to Joe Rogan and people like that, is that this isn't their realm, but they're speaking to it, and they're speaking for the people.
And really, these are the individuals that are getting the messages out, the people that need to hear them, that are not propaganda. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're just real humans doing their thing. So Callie Means, when I did an interview with him yesterday, talking about how advertising and mainstream media is bought off by pharmaceutical companies, right? So let's take this to racing. In racing, you had all these sponsors that spent millions of dollars. How much did you have to be influenced by what you said or did not say for those sponsors? Or were there ever situations where there's a sponsor coming in and you're like, I don't like this company, I don't like these people? How do you navigate that?
I think more of it ended up being just like products at times that like I didn't love or use, maybe, right? You know, there was some along the way, and I worked for their campaign, and I'm not saying they were bad people, but you know, I mean, I guess I can name names. There's nothing wrong with them, but did I use Tax Act? No. I have a CPA. I did not do my own taxes, right? Like I mean, so I was just part of their campaign. Yeah. You know, did I drink Coca-Cola? No. And I think people kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Did I eat Hostess cupcakes? No. But I was a Hostess race diva.
Wow.
Right? Like, I mean.
And it's funny because I didn't even know the companies.
Yeah.
Like it's there were sponsors.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these companies. I don't participate in them. I think everybody needs to make their own choice of that stuff. But you know, I'm being transparent about some of the ones that have felt most misaligned.
Yeah. Were you able to select the ones that you wanted at times? Were there ever a list?
Yeah, and that's all I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the luxury of being retired and having the ability to do anything or nothing.
Right.
Is that I don't need to align myself with anything that isn't aligned with me.
Yeah.
And while in racing they would sponsor the team, the team would then pay me. It would funnel through a different way, right? And I still had endorsements, and some of those ones I mentioned were endorsements. But you know, when you're young and they're offering you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a photo shoot, you're like, that's how you get bought and sold.
Right.
Right?
Was GoDaddy the biggest?
Sponsor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, because they were a sponsor for over a decade.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you were to ever get in a physical fight with Bob Parsons, you think you could take him?
I would never. I love Bob Parsons. He's a cool guy and a very generous guy, and I always loved all those campaigns. That was one thing I never had a problem with. I thought they were hilarious.
Yeah.
And I remind everyone, I had a full jacket and pants on every time. It was the other girls that were half dressed, but we had a lot of fun with it. And he would show me the campaigns. Like, he would show me storyboards for what he was thinking for the Super Bowl commercials. It would usually be during a nice dinner with nice wine, and you know, there's a couple I said no to.
Right.
Yeah, but again, have a large comfort zone. So I didn't do anything that I wasn't okay with.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about the trans athlete thing, because why not?
Yeah, sure.
What are your
Go for
thoughts?
it. Oh, I don't think it's fair. I don't. Yeah. I mean, when a man has 10 times the amount of testosterone as a woman naturally, like that just isn't. There's just differences. I mean,
Right.
between a man and a woman. I mean, I was in a sport that you take away. There's like there's an in between the sport and the athlete, right? There's the car. So, but if we're talking about football, how are they going to do that, right? There's just the biological difference. So I don't think it's fair at all. I think there's two genders.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that one. Going from racing to media, what's the most unexpected skill that you found to be transferable between those worlds?
From racing to media?
Uh-huh.
Focus, I think, can be it, right? Just focus and really like being present in the moment. I think especially with the podcast itself, you know, you can come up, I always do a lot of research and come up with questions that I want to ask, but you've got to really listen to the person speaking, and I just have to trust that yes, I have something to lean back on, I've done my research, but to really stay focused in the present moment and listen, because there's a question in their answer every time. And so you asked earlier, what were you thinking? I'm like, I think a million things. As someone's talking, I'm constantly thinking of something I can add to it, but I stay focused in the moment because that way I can digest it. And I forget. It leaves me, it comes and goes. So sometimes when someone's giving an answer in a podcast, let's say, I have an idea of something I want to ask them after about 10 seconds of them talking, but they talk for 10 minutes. And by the end of it, we've gone a whole new direction. So I feel like that is learned, like in racing, you have to stay very present. Yeah.
So you have done a lot of journeys, and medicine journeys. You've done a lot of deep work, and I think you probably have. What's some of the most woo-woo shit that you've done? Which is different.
Yay, we're on to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, ayahuasca was probably the most woo-woo. Ayahuasca. You know, I'd say that the trip where Garen and I were in Egypt was pretty woo-woo. It was pretty woo-woo. We were singing, chanting, meditating, you know, in the King's Chamber and in temples or in the pyramids all over around Cairo. So that was pretty woo-woo. I did a psilocybin journey that was pretty deep, that I really loved. I think that psilocybin gives you a lot of information about the nature of reality. This is my experience. And ayahuasca gives you a lot of information about yourself. So I think those are some of the biggest.
Yeah. What are you looking for now? What are you seeking? What are you searching for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like I went really deep into all of this stuff for quite a few years. I would say like 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I'd say was probably like the stretch that was really deep into it. And, you know, I found the first time I went to Egypt, I came home and it was 2 weeks and it was a real pilgrimage. I mean, it was all the temples and pyramids. It was a long, I mean, we spent 4 nights on the Nile and visiting different temples along the way. It was a really beautiful experience, but I kind of took a little break after that, and I didn't do anything super spiritual for quite a while. It was like almost time to like absorb it all and just take a break, because it can be really deep and not light. And I'm already heavy, like I'm already serious. But I think that probably the thing that sort of separated me the most, where I don't feel like I'm super into it, is I just feel like I've been able to like get out of being in all of my experiences and be more above them and watch them like an observer. And it's just like, I'm not always in it, but I'm most of the time in it. So I don't feel as triggered by people. I'm just happier more of the time. And my only goal with all of it is just to be happier more of the time, and to understand the cheat code to what this reality is all about. I still haven't figured that one out yet. But when we know what this reality is all about, then we know how to play the game. So if you know that, you know, this is, if this is holographic in nature, if this is AI and we're just a simulation, then it will lead your life in a different way. So that's my reasoning for wanting to know more about the nature of reality. But I'm just happier more of the time. I don't feel the need to go into the abyss and excavate, because here's the thing, it's hard, like going deep and doing the spiritual work and learning about yourself, because it's really about learning about yourself and then changing your perception, which changes your reality. That's really it. Like people didn't change, or things didn't change, I changed.
Right.
And when since I've gotten to a place that feels just more happy and joyful all the time, I don't feel like I need to excavate as much.
Yeah.
So I would say that my yearning for it is much less of a yearn, and more about finding the moments where it feels synchronistic. Like if someone was like, hey, there's a trip to Peru, and it's with an amazing medicine person, and it's a week, and we're going to do 3 ayahuasca ceremonies and 1, you know, sweat lodge or something like that, and it's going to be a great experience. I'd be like, okay. And I look at my schedule and be like, wow, it's actually the week I'm available. And you just wait to see if it lines up, because I'm always open to learning and growing, but I don't feel like I'm like reaching for it as much. So staying in the flow. And it feels like the more, again, that I just do things that I love doing and have so much fun doing, even if it's a vacation. Sometimes on that vacation I do something, I meet someone or have an experience that leads to something that helps in business. Right. And so the path becomes so much more clear. It's like the synchronicities become so much more obvious to me, and so yeah, and those situations will show up. But I think that my like like really like hard charging reach to figure things out, I'm less grasping and more like flowing with it all.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, about, you know, whatever you resist persists,
Yeah.
and how I had to hear that so many times, and how I find that to be quite true for me. This analogy was given to me in recovery in a 12-step group, where if you take the sun is out, and there's all these clouds that are in the way. Well, the sun is always there, the light is always there, love is always there. It's just all this stuff that is in the way of it, the clouds, and it's almost like the storms and the weather, and a lot of it is just self-created. And when you try to fight it, it just seems to be more there.
Yeah.
And when you just let it be, it's like And
Yeah,
that's really hard, though. I think
Yeah.
it's hard to.
And we were talking the other day kind of about that same thing, where when you want something really badly, you're kind of creating an equal and opposite resistance, because you basically are also saying to the universe, I don't have it, I don't have it, I want it, which is I don't have it. And when you have something that you want, but let's say it's more medium level want, and you're like, oh, this would be so cool if this happened. And then you kind of forget, because it's not really that important. It's just kind of would be cool. And then all of a sudden, like, a week later or the next day or something pops up and you're like, oh wow, I was just talking about this, because you kind of let it go. And so, you know, that's kind of why I love the nature of reality and learning more about it, is because what creates that connection? Like, what is quantum entanglement really? Like, how does that work? And how do you, are we anchoring new frequencies? Are we skipping timelines? Are we doing that? I don't know. I mean, but it's fun, and there's a ways that you can really prove it out to yourself, but I don't think we have the science to exactly show what it means, but it works.
Yeah.
It works.
Totally.
Or even language. Like, one of our dear friends, Nada, taught me how to ask the universe, like, how can it get any better? I have yet to have the universe not show me, like right away. How can it get any better? Even when something goes wrong, how can it get any better? Plans get canceled? Well, guess what? Every time I've asked that, a better version comes up. I'm like, that is magic. So language is important.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Pretty Intense. Why'd you call your podcast Pretty Intense?
Because I called my book Pretty Intense. So, because that's kind of a way that people would describe me. It's kind of obviously multiple meanings within there, but I think probably first and foremost I'd be on the intense side, but then a little play on words, being a girl and everything. So, so that's just kind of, we translated that into the podcast, and you know, I'd love to be funny, but that's not me. I'm not really that funny. I'm much more on the serious side of things. So, so I think it's an appropriate name probably for the podcast too.
You don't think you're funny?
I wish I was funny.
Do you want to be more funny?
I would love to be more funny.
Okay. You want to go to an improv class?
Oh wow! Talk about talk about growing my medulla oblongata, or whatever that thing in my brain is. Getting on stage and trying to be funny. Oh
no, I have some friends that own a comedy club. They teach improv.
You guys all laughed on purpose to try and make me feel good, didn't you?
Yeah. If you want to try improv, it's an open invitation.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. No, we've had half my team actually go. It's quite helpful to go to an improv. It is hard. It's some of the hardest public speaking ever, to purposely try to be funny.
I do love and respect comedians that still exist today for being able to say the stuff we all want to say and make jokes about the stuff that we can't really joke about. God, I hope they never go away. Hopefully they don't all get canceled. Yeah,
no, exactly. And the people that are trying to cancel them, well, you know, fuck those people.
Well, that's when Joe Rogan just, you know, makes his own comedy store, right? The mothership, right? You know?
Totally.
It's like, I love the Buckminster Fuller, where it's like, you don't try and fix the old system, start a new one and make the old one obsolete. And that's kind of where the rub's been for me within politics, actually, is where it's like, and just general lifestyle stuff is like, do I just live my life as an example in a different way and not participate in the old system, or do I fight it?
Right. That's the question.
And I was given the good advice that when you do it out of love, and so it feels like a calling to me, it's like out of love. It's not out of fear, it's not out of anger, it's like out of love for the right thing.
Yeah.
Then it's a little bit of a redirect with it.
Yeah, you know, Jeff, we have a friend, Patrick, he wrote a book called Your Stand is Your Brand. And I think it's deciding what your stand is, and that becomes your brand. I mean,
Yeah.
look, Cali, right?
Yeah.
Your stand is your brand.
Yeah, I
And,
think that's true, and that's where the authenticity is. That's where I shared, yesterday about the things that I've shared publicly that I wasn't sure I was ready to share have all had the most amount of traction with the public, because I believe that there is a frequency with that authenticity,
Right.
and that frequency we don't understand from a quantum perspective, but it's real. And so, even for you wanting to speak out more and educate people, it's like when you just say the thing that is you and natural and true, you can't be scared of how it's going to, actually you can be scared of how it's going to land, but if it's true, it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
And even if some stuff falls away, more will emerge because it's in authenticity with you, and it has such a higher resonant rate.
Yeah.
Well,
Any famous last words?
I like humbled to be in the room, and there's so many brilliant, amazing people here, and I feel like it's of my benefit to sit there and get to use the resources within this room. So I kind of feel like I'm over my skis with the room, but hey.
No, we hope to have you back, and I'm really appreciative that Garen sent us this text, and we finally got together, and you're awesome, and it's been fun, so thank you.
Thank you.
Danica Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.